My name is Rhonda Hull, and I am welcoming all of you to join me in an amazing conversation with Colleen Randle. Now, Colleen, I am blessed to say, has been a friend of mine for many, many years. Colleen is going to share with us all about her journey stepping into hypnotherapy. And she was born of a father who was a great spiritual seeker. And so people like Edgar Cayce were familiar to her even when she was a young girl growing up. And so I'll let her share a little bit more about that. But her own spiritual life led her into being really intrigued by hypnosis and past life regression. And now Colleen lives here in Port Townsend, Washington, close to me, and is just an amazing teacher, spiritual teacher herself, and is really involved in teaching empath groups. So I am delighted to be able to bring her to you today to share not only about her work, but her own and her own spiritual journey, but her experiences as a result of being diagnosed with cancer. So Colleen, welcome, welcome, welcome today. I'm really glad that we get to experience technology at its best and be connected through the ethers here.
Well, this is like a magical journey for me because I have a cell phone that I haven't turned on in about 3 months. I don't text. I'm pretty reclusive when it comes to technology. And this is the first time I've had a chat using my computer and actually see Rhonda right in front of us in spite of the fact you're about a 20-minute drive away from me.
Yeah.
So thank you for having this happen. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm just grateful that you're willing to step into this experiment of capturing conversations that remind us of what our common ground is and how we are far more alike than we are different, but we have so many unique experiences that can uplift and teach us all. And I know that on any spiritual journey, you can't help but bump into the whole question of death and dying. And my focus has become really looking at death, not in this morbid way, but as really noticing, accepting that the human experience includes death, and that death is a part of that human experience that gives us the opportunity to consider how we might live more fully. Yeah. So given that death is such a taboo topic, can you remember how you learned about death as a child?
Interesting question. And my grandfather passed away, and we were told that he had died, but he wasn't living in the family home at the time, so it was somewhat removed. The first time I saw someone who died, a younger person, was my cousin, and we went to the funeral, and they had an open casket, which was a terrible event for me. It was so daunting. And I can remember when I was younger, lying awake in my bed crying because someday I would die. And I have no idea where that came from. But in a roundabout way, it led me to hypnosis and led me to studying past life regressions for myself, and with others. And once I was able to see what happens when we cross over and to experience that, all of a sudden I was much more comfortable about it. So here we are in 2020 with a major virus, and it looks like it's worldwide. And now I get to revisit it with slightly different eyes, not that I'm anxious to go, because this has been the sweetest time of my life. Now that I'm getting older, I recognize what it is I have and how I've lived. And I'm becoming more seriously the person I was born to be at this point. Right. So while I'm not in a hurry, I also recognize that death is not giving up and not fighting the good fight or anything like that.
Well, then it's not a failure. I think
No,
that's, you're,
no, but the Western world acts like it's a failure. And with that comes a lot of judgment. And of course it does. And so when I'm reading a book and I hear about an older person and that person is 62 years old, I go, gosh, that's so young. And so it's almost like, for me, it's getting my wits about me. It's
right,
it's looking at things that might bring a question, and it's moving forward, following those questions, and maybe starting a workshop based on the questions I have. We're all wired differently. And what I understand from that is energy comes to us in different ways, in different forms.
right.
And being towards the end of the journey, at least the physical journey on this planet, can be so rich and so fulfilling in many ways, because a lot of the effort and energy that we spent in the past to get here just isn't available to us anymore.
Right.
So nature allows us the time to take a deep breath and to go within. And
Yeah.
that is so precious. And no, I'm not there all the time. And I certainly have my human concerns, and we all do. But
Right.
we are here on this journey to share what we know with like-minded people and to move forward. That's our job. And
It
if we can
really
find
is an
joy
adventure.
in that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's interesting to have that thought somewhere along the way of you look and say, oh, wait a minute, no matter how you slice it, I have less time ahead of me than I do behind me.
Yeah.
And that can either be I love Wayne Dyer, who talked about waking up in the morning and saying, well, you can either wake up in the morning and say, good God, it's morning, or good morning, God. It's all in how we look at it. And the adventure is staying in that place where we remain focused on the good parts of that, rather than being sucked into the depressing downward spiral of that. And that's what I see people struggling with this virus, where
Mm.
we it's where everyone is bumping into the thought of death, that they've been trying to think that if they just don't think about it, it's never going to happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about how can we bump into that but not take the trip down the spiral, and instead go, how can I live my life most fully today, regardless of what's going to unfold.
Regardless of how much toilet paper we bought.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I had a friend once call it circling the drain. And it is. However, it's a huge wake-up call. And
Yes.
that's what has needed to happen for a while. We have needed to become kinder and more aware and have bigger hearts for a while. And I think, for me at least, unless I'm shaken up occasionally, I go on autopilot and I forget. And then it becomes more important. Do I have enough groceries in the house? When am I going to go see all this stuff? And all of this stuff is to maintain the body, but not necessarily the spirit.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to live in spirit and trust that there are no mistakes, there are no accidents, then it's like I'm at my fullest and I'm able to share that.
Right.
So one of the things that happened, because you had mentioned my journey with hypnosis,
Uh-huh.
I did that, I believe in the early 70s. I took a class in self-hypnosis. I'd gone to a party and had a couple of nice glasses of wine, and somebody put on a past life regression tape that had been done with one of their sessions, and I went under. And
Uh,
it was such an intriguing experience. I went to the center that this person had attended for the session, and I took 3 years of classes there. And
mm,
so, yes, I worked on myself, but we also, the students worked on each other, and then I would work with people who didn't have the background and the experience. And what it taught me really is there's nothing to fear. And
mhm.
so there are always things that we're careful about, but When I have had emergency situations and been in horrendous pain, it seems like my spirit leaves my body and I'm looking at myself in pain. And sometimes I'm going back to that pain and then I pop out again and I'm back in spirit looking at it. And that's pretty much what the death experience is, without the tunnel and the lights and all of that
Right.
magnificent richness of that experience and crossing over. And the other part I discovered was that you're not judged by a tribunal or a panel or anything. You cross over and you have your whole life experience in just the flash of a moment. And you judge yourself, but it's not harshly. And I wish, and it's like you get the whole purpose of your existence on the planet in one moment that washes over you, and then you're free. There,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And
and
it's that moment of surrender, you know, it's,
exactly, yeah.
if you would, Colleen, take us back in time a little bit, because I know that you have maneuvered a diagnosis, and I think that
Yeah.
one of the happenings in our life that can throw us off course is having a diagnosis that becomes a wake-up call or an opportunity to really reflect on what matters most to us. So I would invite you to share with people kind of what your journey
Mhm.
was, the reality of what
Mhm.
that journey is.
So in October in 2017, um, I was going to take a shower. I was in our bathroom. The sun happened to be coming through the window at the right angle. I was in front of a large mirror, which I normally wouldn't do. I turned and I saw a dimple in my breast, which I had never seen before. And my mother and her older sister, my aunt, both had breast cancer at 65.
Mhm.
Well, I was already 9 years older than that, so I knew I passed the test. I wasn't going to get that. I'm not that kind of personality. So I was pretty arrogant and wasn't getting regular checkups and on and on. And so I went to see my doctor. They were able to see me in a couple days. I went in for a biopsy, and when the results came back, sure enough, I had stage 1 breast cancer. And so it called for a lumpectomy, which is not a big deal at all. And all of a sudden, you're on this carpet of tests and visits and so forth. They got me in very quickly. I believe it was just before or after Thanksgiving, so it happened very fast. And they did the lumpectomy. I recovered. And what they do is they take a sample of the material that they've excised,
Mhm.
and it turned out that they hadn't gotten all of it. So they had to go back in a second time. And the second time, of course, there was no pain with any of this. So it's like I didn't really realize
Mhm.
that I had cancer, but people were telling me so. And so the second time I went in, they removed it, they got it all. And now we're talking radiation and we're talking hormone blockers. I didn't have the type that chemo would help, but mine's hormone based. And all of a sudden, I was on this carpet of this is the medical procedure, and this is what you do. You do cancer radiation for 5 weeks, 5 days a week, which required a long drive and on and on. And I didn't feel good about that, but I knew I want to make sure it doesn't come back. And hormone blocker, which also has to do with my bone structure and so forth. So it wouldn't have been beneficial over the long run, but it would stop any cancer. Well, the other part of that, I joined a support group, which I would never ever do in my life because who needs support groups? I can handle it. And I was learning from these women who were not crying in their beer. They were survivors and very well informed, just surprising women, just incredible women, that I had choices.
Mhm.
And one of the things I had to do, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and one of the things I had to do in order to go through the protocol of radiation and hormone blocker is I had to quit taking the medicine I was taking for arthritis. And unfortunately, I was in a lot of pain with my joints. I was miserable.
Mhm.
So finally, after a long period of time and thinking about it, I decided to take the arthritis medication and not to do the therapy with radiation and hormone blockers. And I was on the fence for about a safe month. Should I do this? Should I not? What if I die? All this stuff. And I'm not that afraid to die, but all of a sudden it became very real and very black and white.
Right.
And so during this journey, somebody said something to me that probably was just a throwaway according to them, but it changed my life. And I find that happens quite a bit. And
Mhm.
what she said was, you don't have to make the best choice forever. You just make the best choice for now. And as soon as she did that, it's like the clouds cleared. And I thought, yeah. So I have been cancer free now. Let's see, I'd say a year and a half probably. I have no symptoms. I go in and I have the checkups. I'm on every 6 months right now. And what I learned from that is I learned that support groups are really important to be honest with people and to be able to say, you know, if I'm going to be miserable, I just soon not be in that position. I'm choosing other ways to live. I'm choosing not to do these protocols.
Did
Now,
you feel like you got the support that you needed from the medical profession? Like, how did they handle sharing with you the information? How did they share with you about your choices?
so I'm going to say I had the best medical team I could ever have hoped for. The only exception would have been the radiologist, because he was just hell bent on getting me in there to the point where no, no, it was too much. The others knew what they were doing. They're lovely, lovely people, and they took wonderful care of me. However, I had to learn that that is the medical protocol, and that isn't exactly, and I had choice. I didn't realize to begin with that I had choices here. And
Right.
somebody reminded me of that. And then I sat on the fence for a month. But you know, the freedom is it's my body. And if it comes back, I'll choose how I deal with it at that time. But I'm not looking forward to it coming back, but I'm not denying it could either. So I'm living in a middle ground.
Right.
What that does is it focuses my spirit on remaining as healthy as possible. So I listen to tapes that deal with my immune system, which I will start listening to again because of this virus. But there are so many other tools that are available, and there's so many people that experience the same type of situations and make different choices. And none of the 8 or 10 of us that were in the support group knew if we'd made the right choices or not, but we were living with the choices we made, and we were open to changing our mind. And
Yes. And ultimately, kind of reflecting that no matter what choice you make,
yeah.
you can't go wrong, you know? That
Yeah.
every
It's
choice
not
is
like
good.
it's life or death.
Right.
I know.
Well, so how did I know that you have been motivated somewhat, you know, that experience was part of what motivated you, but just that awareness by reflecting on your own mortality,
Mhm.
you moved forward and walked through the process of creating your advanced directive. So
Mhm.
what was that experience like, and what value do you see in asking yourself all of the questions that need to happen in order to pull that together?
So I have a very busy brain, and I always think I communicate very well, but I don't bother with the language to do that. And so, uh, unfortunately, and it was a gift at the same time, someone in the congregation had passed away unexpectedly, and no one knew who her relatives were, how to reach them, what she wanted done. she was gone in a matter of days. And all of a sudden, I looked at that, and somebody had said to me, you know, if you do this, if you do a directive, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for everyone you leave behind. And then all of a sudden, I was on board with it. And then you offered the workshop. I had thought about doing the 5 wishes, which was very powerful for me. So how it feels for me is part of it is a questionnaire that this is what I really want. And once I saw that questionnaire, I got things focused. I want quality, not quantity. I don't want to live to be 150 years old. I don't have that as a goal, but I do want to be comfortable as long as I live, and I don't want to be a burden.
Right.
So in formalizing it and actually going to a workshop, I was given the information I needed. I was given the time that I needed. The discussion was very in-depth about how we feel about it, just to begin with. And in thinking about it, it was easier to do the forms. And in particular, I already had an advanced directive that was done in 2006. And I discovered that amongst my paperwork, and I haven't changed my mind since then, but I doubt if I've had a conversation with my husband that this is really what I want, and I was serious. So we have had conversations like that now. And it makes me feel more settled. And so I think it's good to check in with our mortality, because I think that for me, that's given me a richer path to walk on and not feel that there are loose ends behind that I'm not attending to. And I'm one to procrastinate. So unless I have a deadline, I could have that paperwork for the next 10 years and think about doing it. And I would walk into my office and go, oh, there's that email I haven't answered it. So this gave it a focus. And I can't believe it was 10 minutes before the virus.
Yes.
And now I'm going, well, I have the documents. I just don't want to use them real soon, but here they are. And so it's given me a sense of more balance in my life. And I am thinking about the little treasures that I have here and there, and people who'd really enjoy these particular things. So I already have completed a list of those things. And I have to tell you, it gives me joy to think of these people enjoying something that I've loved over the years.
Well, I'm excited to know, as one of your friends, I'm excited to know the music that you want.
Okay. So I don't listen to music in the background because I find it disruptive if I'm reading or working. And I came across from a local radio station, KPTZ, I came across something that Heart did in 2012, and it was in tribute to Led Zeppelin. And Heart did a rendering of Stairway to Heaven at the Lincoln Center with the Obamas in attendance. And it is
magnificent.
Oh, and people would not associate that music with me, but every time I hear it now, it's
well,
like a locomotive of truth sending you off into the ethers in the best way possible with 2 backup bands. It's really incredible. And so I didn't think I'd get into the music of it. So that's part of the 5 wishes, which is, after you have the legal paperwork and so forth, you get to plan how you'd like to be remembered and how you'd like to be treated on your way out, and on and on. And it's just, I just have to tell you, it gives me joy to think of it and to have people go, oh my gosh, she liked that.
Well, I think that's one of the blessings of this, or one of the important things. It's like, whether it's a birth plan or a death plan or planning to go away for the weekend, it's like you make your plans,
Yeah.
and then they're going to shift and change, but it helps to reflect on, you still get the joy of preparing all of the things that you want. And because life is just energy, you know, it's this opportunity to feel that joy ahead of time. So
Yeah.
surrender at the end, but it gives me the joy of knowing that if I happen to be so blessed to be there at the end and celebrate you, that I know exactly what to do to make it matter most. So given your journey, you know, it's always how we can look at where we are and look backward and see the through line. You know, how what do you see as the greatest blessings of that thread that has led you to where you are now? And what is the most important juicy thing that you feel called to share that can be part of the legacy that you have created?
So I call this another thread in the rich pageantry of life.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't share myself. I was a mystery, but I was a mystery to myself as well. And I kept myself under wraps and didn't show up. Although when I've been in a group, I've generally been the leader. I wasn't acknowledging any of that because that wasn't done when I was growing up. And I had it easy because I was older than most of the kids in my class because I had a birthday in the fall and school was cut off before my birthday. So I got to go into the younger class and I was one of the oldest. So I had a pretty firm foundation. Also, I wasn't hampered with a religious belief system.
Right.
So the thing I love the most now is to have an open heart and not to have to wall it off for any reason. I have chosen to be vulnerable because that's who I am and I'm not afraid of it. And I've had people think I was pretty stupid because I'm that way, but that's a choice I make every single day. And that has allowed me to grow and blossom at this point in my life, that this is the best time I've ever had. It's
Right.
the best time. Yes, still there are concerns. Of course there are. And that's part of being a human on the planet. But I'm not trying to make myself smaller than, bigger than. I'm just fine the way I am. And I'm proud of the person I've become. I'm
I
not
think the
hanging my
older we get, the more we realize that what people think of us is none of our business. No, I think it's Mary Mann Morrissey who made that statement. That
Uh-huh. Yeah. So all is well here, no matter how this turns out. And I know I'll be crossing over. And so, and when I do, I want to hear that music on my way out. And then the heavenly music after that.
well, can you share if you have a way that people can learn more about you or get in touch with you if they're interested in an empath class in the future?
Well, I believe that's going to wind up on Rhonda Hull's website.
I hope so. That's my
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah. And that's probably the easiest way. I
Great.
have to say, I have loved doing the empath group, and I did it for selfish reasons because I was picking up on other people's energy and thinking it was mine. And when I discovered it wasn't, I needed to know more about it.
Right.
So I'm using Judith Orloff's information, and I created a workshop. And it has taught me way more than any of the participants have learned. And it's still ongoing after a couple of years at this point. So I feel very pleased with that. And what I say about that is people who think they're too sensitive, there are a whole array of tools that we can use to protect ourselves and move forward. So we don't have to be victims.
Right. It's our superpower, you know?
Yeah, yes, it is. And we're here for that purpose. We're here to shine for that purpose
Yeah.
so that nobody has to feel they're the only ones or strange. And until about, oh, I'd say 8 or 10 months ago, I was telling people I'm really strange.
Uh-huh.
I'm not normal. Well, yes, I am to
Yay.
20% of society, I am normal. So don't go.
It's one of the bumper stickers that exists here in Port Townsend that says we're all here because we're not all there. So I think that is our superpower
Mhm.
if we use it as such. So
Yes, yes.
Colleen, I am so grateful for this time, and I'm so grateful to share you with everyone. So I look forward to you and I creating your empath group to have it be available on my website. And now that we have to keep our social distancing, that what a blessing that we have this way of staying connected and staying in touch and realizing that we do stand on common ground. So
Well,
thank you very
thank
much.
you for inviting me because I certainly would not have done this on my own and without some prompting.
Yeah, well, good. I
Yeah.
love you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.